AI is quietly destroying the moats that used to make your favorite stocks safe to own. The information edge, the software lead, the content machine, all of it now copies for the price of a monthly subscription, and most investors won't notice until the valuation does. But a handful of moats are doing the exact opposite. They're getting stronger as AI spreads, and the companies that own them could compound for a decade while everyone else fights over the same tools. So what's actually rare enough to own when everyone has the same AI? 5 things, it turns out, and the market is mispricing most of them. We'll pressure test the names people hold for exactly these moats: Tesla, Hims and Hers, and SoFi. One of them is priced on a promise it hasn't kept yet. Start with what a moat is. It's whatever stops competitors from taking your business, the reason a company can stay profitable for years. The shift is that AI doesn't only speed up work, it also erodes the moats that were never hard to copy and puts them within reach of almost anyone for a monthly fee. Valuations haven't fully caught up to that. The common conclusion is that if AI can copy almost any advantage, then most moats are disappearing, and the best response is to invest in whoever builds the strongest AI. Consider the businesses that used to look secure: the broker who sold information, the publisher with privileged access, the software firm with a clever algorithm. AI has reduced the edge in each of those. So is every moat now eroding? But here's what the AI hype crowd keeps getting wrong. The AI can't reach aren't weakening at all. They're getting more valuable because whoever already owns one can point AI at it harder than any outsider ever could. There are 5 of them, and the biggest winners of the next decade will own more than one. The test for each is one question: can AI learn, copy, or buy the advantage? If it can, the moat isn't durable. The business may still be sound, but it isn't defensible. If AI can't reach the advantage, it tends to strengthen over time rather than erode. The first is proprietary data, not public data and not anything a competitor can simply buy. The relevant kind is a closed loop only one company can keep collecting. More usage produces better data improves the service, and the better service attracts more usage. The key word is closed. Take Hims and Hers. Setting aside the weight loss headlines, the underlying model is one customer using several products over time across sexual health, mental health, weight, and aging. Each interaction adds to the company's record of that customer. A competitor can't reconstruct that from public sources and would have to win back each of those customers individually. This part is often misread. AI doesn't undermine this kind of moat, it tends to reinforce it. Whoever already holds the data can extract more from it with AI than a competitor working from the outside. Proprietary data plus AI compounds. Public data plus AI doesn't, because it's available to everyone. That raises a question. Why can AI reach essentially all public data, but not this? We'll return to it. The second is regulation, the licenses and approvals a company needs to operate. AI can't grant itself a banking license or move a drug through clinical trials. SoFi is a clear case. In 2022, it received a U.S. banking license, which changed its economics. It can now hold customer deposits, a cheaper source of funding than borrowing on the open market, and keep loans on its own balance sheet, earning the difference between what it pays depositors and what it charges borrowers. The same scarcity shows up elsewhere. Nubank, a digital bank serving tens of millions across Latin America and recently cleared to operate in the United States, dLocal, built on payment licenses across emerging markets that a rival can't quickly assemble, and Circle, an early mover on compliance under the new U.S. stablecoin rules, with reserve backing for its dollar-backed coin. No amount of engineering talent or AI lets a company bypass these requirements. License-based moats hold up well because a license stays scarce even when most other things can be copied. The third is physical assets: data centers, power generation, energy storage, rare minerals, and logistics networks. AI runs on computers, and computers require electricity, land, and cooling. As demand for computing rises, the constraint shifts to the physical inputs AI can't produce itself. That's why data center real estate and power supply have become strategically important. Providing space and power to the AI build-out is closer to supplying infrastructure than to making a technology bet. The fourth is trust, brand, and habit. As cloned voices and fabricated images become more common, knowing something is genuine becomes more valuable. Coca-Cola and Costco aren't technology companies. They represent decades of trust and repeat behavior, which AI can't transfer to a different brand. It's the most traditional moat on the list, and arguably the most underpriced in the current focus on AI.
The fifth, and arguably the scarcest, is the owner-operator, a founder or major shareholder running the company with significant personal capital at stake, a long time horizon, and a strong record of capital allocation. AI can write code and summarize filings, but it can't make a high-stakes, company-defining decision that may look wrong for years before it's vindicated. David Velez controls roughly 3/4 of Nubank's voting power. Andrew Dudum has led HIMS through repeated category expansion. Elon Musk, whatever one's view of him, has made several contrarian calls that proved correct. This connects back to the earlier question. Why can AI reach effectively all public data, but not a company's private loop? The answer is the same in both cases. AI can't replicate high-stakes human judgment. Proprietary data and a capable owner-operator are two forms of the same scarcity: judgment applied to information no one else holds. That's the 5 categories: proprietary data, a license, physical assets, trust and brand, and an owner-operator. The working thesis: the companies most likely to compound over the next decade hold more than one of these, and at least one is genuinely hard to copy. Applying this honestly is the harder part, because it's easy to be generous toward positions you already hold. So we'll run it against the portfolio we track, even where the result is unfavorable. Start with Tesla. It does hold verified moats. Its charging network and factories are real physical assets, and Musk is the kind of owner-operator this framework prizes. But the advantage that carries the valuation is its driving data, collected from millions of vehicles on real roads. In theory, that's a strong, hard-to-replicate data moat. The trouble is that a data moat only matters once it converts to profit. Robotaxi timelines have repeatedly slipped, and self-driving revenue hasn't materialized. Until that data shows up in earnings, it stays a story rather than a verified moat.
That isn't a dismissal. A story can still move the stock, and the physical assets are real. But a story and a verified moat aren't the same, and that distinction matters later. HIMS scores on data and on the owner-operator, and its physical footprint is larger than many assume. It owns a drug manufacturing campus in New Albany, Ohio, of over 300,000 square feet, regulated by the State Pharmacy Board, plus capacity in California to compound its own medicines, including the peptides behind weight loss treatments, and its own diagnostics lab behind the at-home blood test. So it isn't the pure asset-light platform it's often taken for. It's actively vertically integrating, building more of each step itself, which turns its main regulatory risk, the rules around weight loss drugs, into capacity it controls directly. SoFi's strongest layer is its banking license. Owning its core banking technology adds a second, narrower advantage. It's still developing its ability to move existing customers to the next product, a loan, then a deposit account, then investing.
The limitation is that financial products are largely undifferentiated, and customers will switch for a slightly better rate. So SoFi's advantage is mainly cost and scale, rather than a dominant position, which makes it a moderate moat, not a wide one. The figures to watch are loan default rates, member growth, and net interest margin, the difference between what it earns on loans and pays on deposits. A sustained decline in any of those would weaken the thesis. Those three reach three different verdicts, which is what the framework is for, and in practice it works better as a watch list than a buy list. A holding that scores on just one of these layers, or none at all, isn't necessarily one to sell, but it is one to look at again, because the thesis may be resting on an advantage AI can already reach. A company that scores on three or more, with at least one layer that's genuinely hard to copy, earns the deeper work, the filings, a model, the founder's past decisions. Where the whole case rests on a single data moat, as Tesla's does, the measure to watch is the same every quarter, whether that data has started to show up in earnings. That's the point where a story turns into a verified moat. It also changes the next decision. The question isn't which holding to add to, but which scarce layer the portfolio is still missing. By that standard, the company that currently comes closest to scoring across data, a license, and an owner-operator at once is one we don't yet hold: Nubank. A licensed digital bank still expanding across markets the old banks ignored, it's the exact profile the framework points to, and the kind most people overlook while they chase the obvious AI names. To return to the opening question, what's still rare enough to own when AI can do almost everything? Scarcity hasn't disappeared, it has shifted, from general intelligence to data AI can't reach, from software to a license, from content to physical assets, from persuasion to trust, and from raw talent to disciplined capital allocation by an aligned owner. And there's one last edge AI will never copy, the most boring one of all: the patience to sit on a slow compounder for years while everyone else chases the next fast thing. In a market addicted to speed, doing almost nothing might be the rarest advantage left. That's the whole game, a story versus a verified moat. Get that one distinction right, and you'll sidestep the traps that catch most investors. It's the lens we put on every company we cover. So if that's useful, subscribe, and we'll run the next one together. Finally, a reminder: this video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. All investments carry risk. Please make decisions based on your own circumstances. This is not financial advice.